Hi, guys. Welcome to another exciting episode of Blue Collar Crypto. My name is Phillip, and I'm your host. And today I have Carter here from the Shade Protocol. And we're going to be talking over the Shade Protocol, privacy, why it's important, and how to protect your assets. So I'm going to turn it over to Carter. Carter, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so Carter here. I'm the lead researcher, head of product at Shade Protocol. I've been in crypto since 2017. I spent the first 3 years writing a book called Building Confidence in Blockchain. And then during that 3-year journey, I kind of realized, where is the privacy in crypto? It's this beautiful, uncensorable, decentralized technology. But if there's no privacy, then a lot of our fundamental liberties and protections that are key to commerce and interacting with each other aren't there to protect us. So at that point, I ended up finding Secret Network in the Cosmos ecosystem and started building Shade Protocol on top of it. And we've been building for 3 years. We have some incredible products, some of them that we'll be talking about today. And as I like to say, privacy is the key to unlocking the full value of a decentralized future.
What made you get into blockchain technology and cryptocurrency?
I actually had a cousin when I was in college. I was very bored one summer and he sent me a bunch of links about Bitcoin, and I just fell down the rabbit hole. And it was so beautiful because it was at the crossroads of computer science, economics. I have a bachelor's in computer science and also a finance degree. So it was just whoa, this thing is at the crossroads of everything I know and love. And once I started playing around on Ethereum, I remember using MakerDAO to mint out DAI for the first time. I remember playing around with FOMO 3D and some of the first casino games on Ethereum. There was even March Madness brackets on Ethereum that you could bet on with your ETH. And it was such a unlimited optimism that we could build anything. And naturally we've now headed more into this institutionalized world. And we've also had this 3-year bear market. So a lot of the energy and enthusiasm has kind of been snuffed out by the desire for capital. But the thing that stuck with me is crypto doesn't really care about what's going on in the world. One block at a time, it keeps delivering these fundamental promises. And we can all sit over here and speculate about what these things should be valued at any given day. But they're providing, these blockchains are able to transfer money anywhere around the world in seconds for pennies on the dollar, no permission required. And we're able to do so with this type of ability to track all these transactions and create really, really nice audit logs of everything that's been done. So if we can combine that with privacy, where we can protect individuals, but they can still choose to reveal their transactions when needed, then we will have built a fundamentally better financial system. And that's why I'm still here 3 years later, is because I believe in what crypto is going to become and continue to become, and not what price reflects today, ultimately.
So if you personally had one goal and you can foresee the future in 5 years, where do you think the crypto space is going to be at?
Gosh. Well, I think every day there's more and more crossovers between DeFi and everyday finance. So I think you're going to have things like credit cards and debit cards tied to stablecoins on the blockchain. You'll be yield farming and, giving out your capital to these different DeFi protocols, earning yield. And then you're going to be able to seamlessly bridge it back to your everyday transactions. So I think the next 3 to 4 years is going to be kind of the closing of the gap between DeFi and our everyday lives. And that's also why privacy will be so important, because if someone can tie your identity to an on-chain thing, they can know every single thing you've purchased since the beginning of time. Because of the immutable nature of the blockchain, privacy is actually more important than in traditional finance.
100% agree. So the Secret Network is a privacy network in itself, and then Shade is built on top of Secret. So tell me more about the Secret Network in general.
Yes. So how Secret Network privacy is obtained is all the different nodes on the network have something called secure enclaves, and they're hardware that exists on every single node all over the world. And essentially these enclaves, not even the node operators themselves can look inside of this encrypted environment. And so the state of the blockchain is, distributed out to all the different nodes of the network. And so when you submit a transaction, what happens is it's encrypted. It goes inside of those enclaves, and in there is where the decryption happens, that no one can see it. And then the state of the blockchain is updated, And then the output of the transaction gets spit out and gets compared to every single other node on the network to verify, yep, we all did the same computation. We got the same output. We're able to verify the validity of the transaction. And then this creates this beautiful system of you can go on a block explorer, and all you really see is like address A interacted with the smart contract. You don't know how much money was interacting with the smart contract. You don't know the destination of where the assets go. All of that is with that hardware level encryption. And there's also some seed protection and rotation stuff that's getting better and better, because the natural criticism is like, well, what if you break the hardware? And so there's something called threshold level encryption, where the seed, like the decryption seed, is distributed throughout all the nodes on the network. So it wouldn't be good enough to just compromise one node. You would have to compromise the majority of the nodes to be able to like re-pull together the decryption seed. So it's an ever moving battle, privacy is, and I don't like to get pulled into the privacy maximalism world, because there's some people that are like, your privacy is not theoretically perfect, therefore you're bad. And I'm like, no, guys, this is like, it's we privacy together against transparency. Like, let's not get the battle, like the lines drawn incorrectly here. We need more privacy, period. And we can worry about how perfect that privacy is over the course of the next 100 years, because that's an endless battle. What we really need to do is educate the public on the value of privacy, and that having privacy doesn't mean you're an evil or bad person. It just means that you want your on-chain activity to only be revealed to the people you want to reveal it to.
So it's equivalent to, you have shades on your window. You open the shades to let the sunlight in, but you're not going to leave the shades open when you're getting dressed. So
yes,
you have to close it off and get some kind of privacy. You wouldn't take your bank account and put your bank account online for everyone to see.
No.
So
same with your debt. Same with your debt too. That's the other side of it, is you have these lending and borrowing products, which is what ShadeX is. It's the world's first encrypted lending and borrowing platform. But on Ethereum, people are like lending out $25 million, or someone has $10 million of collateral they've put down. And if the price of ETH drops to $17,000 or $1,700, all of crypto Twitter is going to tweet about this person and them getting liquidated. Like, it's absurd. It's like your bank account is in the arena for everyone to see, and all your mistakes are there to be seen. And even like, I've worked for crypto companies, and even like salaries, I'm like, oh, I know what my coworkers are getting paid. Like, it's right there. Like, it's like, that's fundamentally like kind of the trust fabric of society. One of the baseline things is we don't value people purely by the dollars in their bank account or how much debt they have. Like, we're not really privy to that. Like, we take you as a human first and foremost. And I think like privacy is a key part of maintaining the social contract of valuing everyone for who they are and not for what they're worth.
Right. So tell me more about Shade. How does it interact with Secret? Why is Secret the building block, or why did you guys choose Secret Network?
Yes. So Shade Protocol is a set of hundreds of smart contracts on top of Secret Network. Those smart contracts, they live within the state of the blockchain inside of those encrypted enclaves. That's where all the smart contract logic lives. And when we started this journey back in end of 2021, the token went live February 21st of 2022. There was no other privacy smart contracts in all of crypto. And to be quite honest, 3 years later, there's really only a couple of other, like Oasis is probably the most well-known one. Dusk Network is another one, but like there still really isn't that many good privacy blockchains out there, because it's really, really difficult to build something that's super easy for developers to build on. Sometimes we get comments like, oh, like, why don't you build on top of Monero? And it's because Monero isn't a smart contract framework. It wasn't designed around this concept of building apps on top of it. It was built for one singular purpose, which is to obscure movement of asset from A to B. And so people who try to build on top of that, they can spend years trying to add in just basic extra functionality, versus on Secret Network, we can build an application in months. It's super simple. So yeah, hopefully that helps answer the question.
Now, I know here in the US, we got a lot of backlash with things like Tornado Cash. What is the difference between this, a Tornado Cash application compared to a privacy chain? Like, what is the difference?
Yeah, I mean, I think the fundamental difference is Secret Network allows you to decrypt your transactions and hand them off to an auditor if you want to. The key is sovereignty. You can't force me to decrypt my stuff. I have the ability to easily do that. I can do a CSV download. Here you go. And I would also say, like, Tornado Cash, the main criticisms of mixers, it's like the main purpose of Tornado Cash is to like hide the movement of illicit funds. And I think the interesting part about something like Shade Protocol is we have lending, we have borrowing, we have swapping. These are more like verbs and transactions. It's more like a kind of like a commerce versus a mixer is purely like I'm hiding asset movement. In fairness, I'm a huge supporter of Tornado Cash. It's amazing technology, but that's kind of the criticisms that's levied against it. And I've actually been to Washington, D.C. on multiple occasions. I've had a chance working alongside the Zcash Foundation to talk to politicians, to educate them on the value of privacy. And what a lot of the philosophical argument comes down to is the internet. It is a force for good and a force for evil. The same technology that can allow for sex trafficking, like weapons, arms trading, all these different things, is the same technology that allows us to have free speech distributed instantly through everywhere in the world. And so in a similar sense, financial privacy is such a powerful protection. It's a protection that produces a better net positive, net sum thing than if we try to ban privacy from everyday normal folks. And then in a similar sense, like for instance, in America, we protect the right to bear arms. There's other countries where having a firearm is illegal, but guess what? Bad people still have the firearms and the good people don't. I think privacy is a very similar concept. Is like you can ban privacy from the normal user and try to scare them away, but this just means that your illicit actors are going to make privacy tools anyways, and they're going to use them anyways. So I believe in protecting individual liberty, and I believe that privacy is a net positive and it far outweighs the net negatives. And naturally, that means we still have to work with regulators to be able to have frameworks and tooling that allows normal folks to say, you know, if you subpoena me and you have probable cause, I have the ability to give you information, but you still got to walk through the normal steps of having probable cause.
Right, right. So it basically takes the third party out of it. So instead of them subpoenaing the bank to get your bank records, they actually have to confront you and be like, hey, I need your CSV transaction history from, that's awesome. I mean, I think that is a way to kind of eliminate the middleman once again. So I know crypto in general for decades or for years for sure has been, their ammunition was that it's used for illegal activities. It's used to buy drugs and buy guns. And my rebuttal to that is, what's the difference than cash? Because if I take cash, I can go buy the same things I can buy and it's not traceable. So that's my rebuttal there. But yeah, so about Shade, you guys have ShadeX. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, so ShadeX is the world's first encrypted lending and borrowing market. So this means that you can come in and you can deposit collateral, like let's say Bitcoin, and no one will know how much Bitcoin you deposited. And then you could go ahead and borrow something like USDC, and no one would know how much USDC you borrowed. And then you can go do with that what you will, right? You can make a down payment on a house. You could buy another crypto asset that you want to speculate on. You could lend out the USDC. Like really the possibilities on that are endless. And we just provide privacy for all of those things in a way that has never been done before. There's other things too, like the amount that you're lending out, the debt that you've accrued to your position, where you're going to get liquidated. All of this is kept private. And separate from the privacy features, we have some best-in-class features, like it's a cross-margin product. So that means you can collateralize the debt against Bitcoin and USDC and Atom all at the same time. So I can deposit Bitcoin, Atom, and USDC. They all aggregate into a single position, a single set of assets that are backing the debt that I've drawn. So it's cross-margin. We have other great features like partial liquidations. So a lot of traditional money markets, when your loan to value ratio, aka when the value of your debt is too large in relation to the assets backing that debt, you essentially need to become liquidatable to ensure that the lenders can get their assets back. And so traditionally, the free market comes in, they take your collateral, they swap it for the debt, they repay the lenders, and then they kind of keep this spread and this discount, right? And traditional money markets, they'll sell like 50% of your collateral to kind of handle these liquidation events. So let's say you put $1,000 down. By the time you're done being liquidated, you only have $500 collateral left. which is pretty ugly. It hurts. Like a 50% liquidation hurts. It's kind of scary to use a product when if you look away for a day or two, suddenly your position's completely screwed. And so we do something called partial liquidations, where we only liquidate you back to the amount just under that acceptable loan to value ratio. So instead of a 50% liquidation, we'll liquidate you like 2-3% of your position, and then you're safe again. And then if the stuff keeps dropping, then we liquidate you again. And so it's like this smooth liquidation curve instead of one big like yank. And then people really like this because it's almost like a limit sell in a way. Like you can kind of trust the system has you as a borrower. It's not trying to screw you over. It's like you're making a bad decision, but we're going to give you every chance you can to run away instead of just like dropping the hammer the instant you're kind of in a liquidatable zone. So that's a great feature. Another one is collateral swaps. This is from what I can tell, a world's first or one of the first apps to use this, where let's say you have Bitcoin and USDC as your collateral and you're borrowing, let's say, Atom. And let's say you become bearish on Bitcoin, like you're worried the price is going to drop 20%, things are looking ugly. Traditionally, with how money markets have worked, you have to withdraw your Bitcoin, swap it for USDC, and then redeposit it into your position. And the problem with that is during that period where you've withdrawn it, swapped it, put it back in, your position now has less collateral backing the debt. So your LTV has dropped and now you're like stressed out. It's like, I got to do this thing fast because if I don't do it fast. And sometimes it's so bad that you can't even make that swap because the very act of withdrawing your collateral to do what you want will make it too risky and potentially liquidatable. Your other option to handle that is to repay some of your debt so you're kind of safe enough to perform this asset withdrawal and then remanagement. But once again, that's stressful and it's scary. And so what collateral swaps are, we actually allow you to swap your collateral on the fly in a single block. So you could sell that Bitcoin for USDC, re-add it to your like whole position, and we let you do that in a single block from the interface. So you never have to worry about your LTV doing some crazy thing while you're off performing this financial operation. So that's a huge quality of life change. We also have lending and borrowing rewards. So we will actually pay you to borrow assets as kind of an introductory feature. A lot of people have been ranting and raving about this. They love it because even if they make kind of a bad trade, there's still this kind of payback rewarding them to try the product for the first time. And we'll also pay you additional Shade rewards to lend out products. So right now you can lend out Bitcoin. You can earn over 4% in the form of Bitcoin. So you lend $1,000 worth of Bitcoin at the end of the year, you'll have earned, $40 of Bitcoin, and you'll also earn Shade rewards on top of it.
Now, for users who just get into your platform from day one, it could be kind of scary. You have S assets, staked secret assets, LPs, you have SS pools. Do you think you could kind of pull up the platform and share it with your screen and kind of walk us through everything?
Sure. Yeah, 1 second here. Let me pull this up here. Good old Kepler transactions. Make sure I log in. Okay. And there we go. Okay. Let me go ahead and share here, share screen, and we'll go to the Shade app. All right. So we have the Shade app here. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the first step of coming to Shade Protocol would be bridging in assets. So you can bridge in from a whole host of chains, assets into the Shade app. You'll want a little bit of SCRT tokens. That's the gas token of Secret Network. There's a gas faucet that you can get secret from. You can also ask other community members. You can bridge it in from centralized exchanges. You can bridge it in from osmosis. And then once you have gas, you'll be good to go because you can always acquire more gas on the DEX over here. But first step is just bridging in your favorite L1 token. Your next step, of course, is we have the portfolio page so you can check out what assets you have. There's these things called permits because all of these different balances are encrypted. You actually need to be able to view your encrypted balances. And so we have, it's a free transaction and it essentially creates a decryption key that allows you to view all of your encrypted balances because only you can see these. No one else can. These are all encrypted. We have our swap interface, which is probably one of our more popular products. You can swap any of these different crypto assets for other assets on there. Some of these acronyms don't be too intimidated by. You have things like Stake Secret, which is a liquid staking product tied to secret staking. It's actually built by Shade Protocol, so that's a fun one you can use. We have things like ST Atom, which is just liquid staked Atom. D-Shade is another liquid staking token for Shade. You got Wrapped ETH. You got WST ETH, which is, once again, another liquid staking token for ETH. Probably the most confusing and recent assets that were added are X assets. And what X assets are is when you lend out an asset using the lending product, you actually mint essentially a token. So for Atom, if I lend out Atom, I get something called X Atom. And when I turn my X Atom back in, you earn principal plus all the interest accrued during your time of holding that X Atom token. So they're really, really nifty tokens that can be used as collateral and be used elsewhere in DeFi. So yeah, that's the swap page. You have the pools page, which is for people that want to become liquidity providers. Lots of interesting opportunities, different APRs on here. And then this is ShadeX, the lend and borrow page. So like I said right here, you can earn with Atom, you can earn 15.37% in the form of Atom right now. No liquidity providing, no impermanence loss risk. You can just lend out your Atom. And then you can also earn an additional 14.6% in the form of Shade. And then this Bitcoin lending right here, I think is the best Bitcoin yield in all of Cosmos right now. You can earn 6% yield in the form of Bitcoin on your Bitcoin because there's that much borrowing demand for Bitcoin on the Shade app. So just incredible yield opportunities over here. And then the borrow page, this is where folks can come in and they can borrow different assets against their collateral. So I can actually show you that right here. So I have a position open right here, and I know that I have $758 of collateral in my position. And I know that my LTV is currently 55%. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to borrow one USDC Noble just to kind of show this process of borrowing. And you can see my debt changes right here. My LTV goes up a little bit and my interest rate goes up just a touch when I borrow a little bit of Noble. So just a little Kepler transaction. I don't think that showed up on the screen, probably for privacy reasons. We're going to approve that transaction. Transactions on Secret Network take roughly 6 to 8 seconds. So borrow success. I just borrowed one USDC Noble against all of my different collaterals. And now I can, it's literally pops up in my wallet, the one USDC Noble. So I can go and do whatever I want with that. And then a really nifty page is the manage page. So this shows you actually kind of a little bug right there. We got to fix these logos stacking on top of each other. But you can see on this page all the different debts that I essentially have borrowed against my position. So I have $5 of secret debt, $2.31 of Atom debt, $5 of USDC debt, $150 of Bitcoin debt, $144 of ST Atom debt. And then down here, you can see the different cross-margin collateral that you've put in to back those debt positions that you borrowed. And you can see I have 162 Atom here, about $750 of Atom down as collateral backing these loans. You can also claim your rewards because you earn rewards for borrowing. And you can also claim your rewards on the lend page on the rewards tab. There's like a rewards option right over here. Separate from lending and borrowing, we also have a stablecoin called Silk that you can mint and borrow against your collateral. Our analytics page does a really good job of describing what Silk is. It was actually our original big product. It's an over-collateralized stablecoin pegged to a basket of currencies and commodities. And it started at $1.05, and now it's at $1.27. So it has outperformed the dollar by roughly 8% the last 2 years. You don't have to do anything in DeFi. All you have to do is hold the stablecoin. And you can also see the reserves on it. There's $4.5 million of assets backing the $1.6 million of debt. So I'll pause there. There's even more of that on the app, but that's just a taste of what's been built over the course of 3 years.
I know when I first looked at Silk, I was highly impressed. I was like, yes, this is a stable coin. This is what it means to be a stable coin, is to have a basket of assets. And not just crypto assets. You have the US dollar in there, you have the euro in there, you have other commodities, other fiat currency to kind of give it that little weight out to keep it proportioned. You're not going to get rich overnight. but you are going to earn rewards and it is going to compound over time. So if you would have minted Silk at $1 when it first launched, you would have $1.20 now. I mean, that's 20% return. That's great for a stable coin. That's amazing. And then if you take that stable coin and then you lend that stable coin out, you earn rewards on top of that. So then you're compounding rewards. I think Silk is like, it's an amazing concept. I think that's what stablecoin is made to be.
And I think Silk has a lot of growth ahead of it too, whenever the next kind of cycle of liquidity comes back into crypto. Because fundamentally, right now in DeFi, if you have everyone's building this whole economy around the dollar. And the problem with that is people are getting excited over like, I can earn 5% yield on my dollar. And it's like, yeah, but inflation is like 5%. So you're just keeping your chin above water. But what if you built DeFi around Silk? Now, when you're earning yield on your Silk, you're already out competing inflation by a couple percentage points. So now the yield is actually meaningful. And that's what it's all about. That's what crypto can be. We can do so much better than the dollar. That's what brought us here in the first place. And don't get me wrong, dollars are a key part of the DeFi economy, but things like Shade, building an economy around Silk it's running back the Terra experiment, except over-collateralized and with privacy and with a vision for a stablecoin that's much stronger than the dollar.
So what makes it different than Luna?
So Terra Luna was an algorithmic stablecoin. It was essentially, it only had one collateral backing every UST, which was the dollar stablecoin. And it was Luna, which is just kind of this volatile governance token that you could burn $1 of Luna to get $1 of UST. But there's really big economic ramifications within that system. It was a very attackable system versus with Silk, it's an over-collateralized system. So every Silk in circulation is backed by more than $1 worth of Silk. You know, like right now it's over 200% collateralized right now. This means growth is a lot slower though, but it's trusted and it works. And we've seen so many stable coins blow up in Cosmos. And I want to like knock on wood here, of course. This is like pride comes before the fall, but Silk has been stable and has worked for over 2 years at this point, which I think is a wonderful achievement, especially amidst the worst crypto bear market I personally have ever seen.
So what are some of the hurdles that ShadeX and Shade has kind of accomplished through this bear market? What are some things that you sit back and look on, you're like, thank God that's over?
Oh, man. Well, I would say one that I'm really proud of is we got through the airdrop period. I haven't had anyone DM me and say, is the airdrop still open? So that's, as like one of the builders, it's like for the first 2 years, there's always the people that would come back and you feel so bad because they didn't claim the airdrop in the first year and a half and all that stuff. So getting through the distribution phase was a big accomplishment. Another one I'm really proud of is originally when you use Secret Network is much slower and jankier, and even like viewing your balances, you had to create one viewing key per asset, and you actually had to spend money to create the key to view your encrypted balances. Now it's free. You click one button and you can view up to 32 balances for free. So all you need to do is like to view pretty much all the apps, all the tokens on the app. We're talking 2 to 3 clicks for free to do the whole thing. So we haven't had a single user complain about like, how do I view my balances versus back in the day? We would see DMs all the time about my balances. So those are two things I'm proud of. And then ShadeX specifically having launched on March 5th, we saw I think we're close to $2 million of fresh capital that came into Secret Network. We're a $4 million protocol. We're nothing. We're a baby, right? And we're seeing $2 million come and use a product. Incredibly encouraging. We're on to something. We're never going to stop building. And this private interchain economy that we're building, this unstoppable sovereign financial platform, it just continues to make me more and more excited about every day because it's actually here. 3 years ago, it was a white paper. It wasn't an idea. People didn't think we could actually do it. Now we've shipped it and no one really cares because there's no energy in the market. But as things turn around, people are going to wake up to the fact that, holy smokes, those guys built for 3 years and they stay true to their principles. And we'll see where that lands us.
So tell me, what was your initial feelings and your initial thought after that first block was created? Take me back there.
Oh, gosh. Well, I remember when Shade first launched, there was 2 dexes that don't even exist anymore on Secret Network. They were called Secret Swap and Sienna Swap. And I just remember seeing people just diving in and trying to acquire Shade because Terra hadn't collapsed yet. So there was all this energy of like Shade is going to be Terra, but with privacy. And so it was just really cool having this community come over and join us and believe in our vision. But I also remember like Shade was at like 70, 80, $90, which it was the classic like low float, high FTV. Like it didn't actually reflect reality. I just remember being like, this is absurd. Like we shouldn't be worth, I think our market cap at its peak was like 200-300 million. I was like, we haven't built anything yet. This is like crazy exciting, but also like this is detached from reality. Like I know that we haven't actually built anything yet. We've just talked about it. So it was exciting, but there was this cognitive dissonance of like, I don't understand, like this doesn't make sense. Now it's like the flip side of the equation where it's like, we've built all the things and we're like, this is detached from reality. This is undervalued. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like a perfect flip of where we were 3 years ago. So hopefully by the time this journey is done, it meets somewhere in the middle where there is kind of the fun optimism of what can be versus the recognition of what actually is.
So what does ShadeX have on the roadmap in store?
So for us right now, we're really content with the product suite. So we have a lot of iteration on the UI UX and just listening to user feedback to improve the whole experience. We're also starting to explore some omni-chain initiatives where we bring ShadeX not just to Secret Network, but potentially to other Cosmos chains or to other places throughout crypto to make sure the product suite is more accessible to other folks. Portfolio V2 is a big one. We've had the same portfolio page for like 3 years. So that's one I'm looking forward to updating. I think the Osmosis portfolio page is great. So definitely going to be taking some inspiration from them. And then the bridging experience too could use some work. It's still a little bit janky compared to what's best in class out there in Cosmos. So always things to chip away at. And then finally, sales and customer acquisition, like going one person at a time, trying to get people to come try out the product. The dev team has done everything we can do. And it becomes more a game of like, how do we get this amazing technology into the hands of as many consumers as possible?
So what is the process of applications getting their tokens onto ShadeX? Like some of the smaller to mid caps, like how do users get like say Passage or Akash or so some of these lesser known tokens, but they do have liquidity pools. I'm assuming everything's permissioned, correct?
Yeah, currently, this is a decision we made a while back where like the DEX is capable of being permissionless, but we were really worried about rugs at the time of like, we have this front end interface. We want to be really careful about what gets presented. So the DEX becoming permissionless is something on the roadmap, but currently it's as simple as like, come to Telegram, say you want a pool can be spun up very quickly. What I like to say to people is we've never said no to a pool, but people ask for it. It's just like, if there's an IBC connection involved, that does take a little bit more work because you got to work with the relayers and the chains to get the channel spun up, add it to the bridge page. But if you're someone who has even like over $1,000 of liquidity and you want a certain pool, like we can definitely help.
Nice. So what do y'all have? Any partnerships lined up? Anybody that you guys are kind of excited to work with over the next year?
I'm super excited to work with the Hydro platform over on Neutron and the Cosmos Hub. They have this really wonderful product where there's essentially a lot of Atom liquidity just kind of like sitting around not being utilized. And we can essentially pay this platform to then bring the liquidity over here, source the liquidity, put it on the platform. And we're going to be adding Atom liquidity to ShadeX, the lending platform. So that's going to allow for more borrowing activity, more economic activity. And they're actually going to be adding support for, I think, USDC and potentially Neutron in the not too distant future. So just looking forward to working with them to source liquidity onto ShadeX and to bootstrap things. We also really like working with Stride. We've been working with them for like over 2 years. Shade is actually going back and forth with Osmosis in terms of who has more Stride assets on it. So we're actually like one of the biggest adopters of Stride's liquid staking tokens, which is a great relationship. And yeah, I mean, outside of that, it's just continuing to build support for liquidity for the assets people in Cosmos love. So always open for feedback.
Nice. Like I noticed as a user that we see Stride everywhere. Like Stride has, the liquid staking tokens pretty much on every platform. But what about some of the smaller guys like Backbone Labs and some of these, Quicksilver, some of these other LST providers?
Yeah, so way back it was early 23, we had support for Quicksilver, Persistence, and Stride. So we were like, we want to kind of take a neutral posture on which LSTs we're supporting. We think it's going to be a really competitive space. We want to see who kind of comes out on top. Persistence wound down their LST. Quicksilver essentially almost wound down their LST. Like there was a full changing over of team. And so there was like no liquidity for those two LSTs. So unfortunately, I think for like by the time Backbone and Eris kind of rolled around, we had already kind of been burned on spending like a lot of incentives on two products that like essentially cease to exist in any significant way anymore. So I think for the LSTs that want to be on ShadeSwap, like I think Drop, for instance, they're going to be bootstrapping D-Atom on ShadeSwap using Hydro as a platform. And I think once that liquidity is there and we see the economic activity, it'll be easier for us to like push more chips on the table and aggressively help growth. But our community's kind of been burned. And I love Backbone, love Eris, like all of them are like great builders. Just like having to be wise about where emissions are spent, of course.
Oh yeah, I mean, because you have to think of the end user in mind, for sure. And the last thing you want is to, have another burn or another rug or anything like that. So I completely understand the process that it takes. Okay, let me ask you this question: like, why do you think we're still in the bear market in the cosmos in general?
That's a big question. I could talk about this for like 5 hours straight. I'd probably do a TED talk on this one. I think a couple of path dependencies that happened here. So one was post-Terra collapse. Pretty much all the liquidity got sucked out of Cosmos. A lot of the venture capital that were exposed to investing in Cosmos were also exposed to Terra. So when that got wiped out, the capital base that would invest in more builders completely disappeared overnight. And my number one metric for a growing ecosystem is how many people are building full-time in your ecosystem. Is that number going up or is that number going down? And in Cosmos, that number has been trending down slowly but surely. Like a lot of the teams that raised money back in 2021, 2022, slowly but surely are getting picked off one by one. So that's one part of it. There hasn't been new builders, and this oldest round of builders have essentially struggled to raise a second round of capital, or they just made really bad financial decisions and are being forced to kind of like wind down operations. So Terra plus VCs collapsing is one thing. The second thing is I think the Cosmos Hub was the kind of the biggest capital base in Cosmos outside of Terra. And there was a lot of posturing about, the hub is going to be like this neutral security provider. And I think there was a lot of people that were incentivized to not have the hub be like a DeFi hub or kind of an aggressive investor into Cosmos. And to be honest, I think that stifled a lot of growth. I think things like, I guess I don't want to name too many names, but we'll just say like very large figureheads in Cosmos were incentivized to have the hub really be a nothing burger. And they kind of went off and built competing things while the hub was standing still. So I think that really hurt Cosmos as a whole. So that's number two. Number three, I think bridging has been pretty brutal. We specifically pretty much only had support for Axelar for the longest of time. And Axelar is like a really huge product. So like hats off to them, great protocol. But I don't think there was the type of urgency and support to like get more crypto assets. Like for instance, connecting Solana to Cosmos. That took us like way too long, or base ecosystem to Cosmos. Bridge and IBC has always been kind of like gridlocked internally to Cosmos. And so it's been difficult to get Cosmos assets out into the broader crypto ecosystem. And it's been difficult to get those assets into Cosmos. So bridging as a third one. And like I said, I could go on forever. Let me see if I could come up with the fourth. I definitely could come up with a fourth, but we'll pause there.
Yeah. I mean,
final one.
Go ahead.
Wallet support. The fact that Cosmos didn't build EVM compatible wallet support out of the gates is also a massive problem. Like to become a Cosmos user, you had to install Kepler. Imagine if MetaMask would have been available for Cosmos on day one. How much easier would it have been for liquidity and people to jump in? Because no one wants to transfer a seed phrase and make a new wallet. So wallet, bridging, hub, liquidity, and VC collapse. That's kind of what brought us to this bear market to where we are today for Cosmos.
I mean, I remember a few years ago, whenever it seemed like almost every month it was a bridge, hack. Like I lost a lot of funds on the multi-chain bridge, which is not a Cosmos, but it was a Phantom bridge. And, I lost a bunch of funds there. And I just remember, man, this sucks. And it kind of gave me I went down a rabbit hole of how bridges work, how smart contracts work, and how the hack work, and what happened. You know what I mean? So again, that's another rabbit hole. If anybody wants to jump down, to help protect yourself when you talk about bridged assets and the added risk that you take on whenever you acquire a bridged asset compared to a native asset. But yeah, so is there anything else that I might have missed out, or anything else you want to share with the community?
I think the one other question or answer I would toss in there is like, is Shade token valuable? Right? That's always a question people are curious about, especially in an era where it just feels like people emit, and there's really no like end game beyond kind of just like token inflation. So Shade Protocol has a vision for something called the meta engine. And our goal is to have a fully sustaining zero emission ecosystem. And the way this works is we have a decentralized exchange, we have lending and borrowing, we have Soak the stablecoin, we have our own staking derivatives. All of these different primitives produce fees, and they all go into a bucket of fees. And what happens is a percentage of all those fees actually buys back Shade and gives it to Shade stakers. So we don't do any inflation to staking. It's all real yield based off of economic activity on the dApp. And then the remaining portion of the fees are converted into protocol owned liquidity. So we currently have over $500,000 of protocol owned liquidity on the dApp. And what this does is every year with our inflation schedule, it was originally roughly 1,200 Shade per day being emitted. Now we're down to roughly 700 Shade per day. And then within that, because we have protocol owned liquidity, we're also absorbing a lot of those Shade per day that's happening on the app. So we have more and more pools that are going to zero emissions. My favorite example is the Silk Shade pool. Originally had 200 Shade per day that was emitted at it. It was like a key pool, a very expensive one. We're on the verge of having emissions on that pool be zero emissions because we've built up protocol owned liquidity where even if the market doesn't add any liquidity, there's actually enough money there for it to be tradable and be a good experience. So our goal is by the end of year 10, we're 3 years in, Shade emission schedule will be at zero. We're hoping to have roughly $20 million of protocol owned liquidity. And at that point, it's a fully self-sustaining economy that will slowly but surely grow itself, kind of the law of compounding growth. And with those additional fees, the buybacks will get bigger and bigger over time. And the whole system is really built around serving end customers, serving end users, having fees create a sustainable ecosystem as opposed to inflation creating a sustainable ecosystem. And inflation is a tool that gets brutally misused by our governments. It gets brutally misused by crypto projects. We have a lot of community members that it's tough. People want the more immediate growth. They want the more immediate results. But we're thinking on a 10-year horizon. And in a space, an industry that has no patience, patience is a superpower.
So tell me about the tokenomics behind Shade.
Yeah. So you're talking about like the actual like distribution. So there's 10 million Shade tokens. 40% is devoted to, well, roughly it's more like 35% is in the community pool. So once governance goes live one day, that will be governable by the community. We always say we want to make sure that there's something meaningful to be governed before we add governance. I think there's a lot of projects that add governance and there really isn't anything to govern. And so people find ways to just like create traction and problems. And it's like, we got to make sure there's like money here to be governed and have something meaningful. So 35% for the community pool. And then we had originally 23.25% went to the developer fund. The developer fund now is roughly 16% of supply instead of 23.25. So that's been dispersed out to various employees over the last 3 years, different OTC rounds to maintain the builders. And then we have roughly 18% is for liquidity providing rewards. That's that 10-year schedule that's slowly floating down to zero. And actually, let me pull up the actual. If you go to our analytics page, you can actually view. If you scroll down, we actually have a spot that talks about what's in circulation, what's not in circulation. Yeah, there we go. 37% in the community pool currently. The rest, 33.7% is actually circulating and is like out there in circulation. And then you have the dev fund and then you have LP rewards. So it's a slow moving journey to get everything fully distributed, but we feel like we're on a good trajectory.
Is all of the vested tokens unlocked, or is there any like unlocked periods for any of the devs or anything like that?
Yeah, so originally there was $5 billion that was raised back at the end of 2021, and it was 7.75% of supply. All of that has been fully vested out to VCs at this point. So that's kind of the cool part. Now that we're on year 3, we know which VCs have sold. So if you join kind of the Shade community and decide to hold some Shade, you don't have to worry about kind of like the tailwinds of VCs like continuing to dump. And then on the dev side, we have a 4-year vesting schedule. So we have like 1 year left of remaining vesting, but we're super transparent about our holdings in the sense that I myself have not claimed a single shade. And so that's kind of like, as a founder, I kind of have the last off the boat mentality, have no interest in selling shade, to be honest. So believe in what we're doing here.
That's awesome. So where does the community find updates, TED Talks, more information, the latest news on Shade?
Yeah, so great place to go is on YouTube. You can look up Shade Protocol. We have, I think, over 250 videos on YouTube. I think we have more videos than Osmosis. We're like super active on YouTube, even though we don't have a lot of subscribers. Great content there. You can also find us on X, Shade_protocol, super active there. You can follow me, L_Wetzel. And then, of course, you can find our Telegram. If you look up shadeprotocol.io, you can find the official links for all the social media channels. But we have a very active Discord, very active Telegram, even despite the bear market. And come try out the product. Come chat with us. We'd love to meet you and onboard you.
Nice. Now, I had put in the comments over on X about this interview, and there's a lot of people that reached out, and they were super excited. You have a great reputation inside the Cosmos.
Appreciate it.
People were excited that they told me, they're like, man, congratulations, good job, man. It's going to be a great interview. So I'm just going to kind of tag in here and see if there's any questions anyone kind of posted. I know there was one asking if there's going to be any connections between Shade and Prism, any of the Refract tokens.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So we're in a back Telegram chat with their team. We're interested in figuring out how to get their assets utilized and potentially have them interact with some of our LSTs, because we have DSilk, we have DShade, and we have Stake Secret. So it'd be interesting to kind of use the refraction to break out the different principal versus yield components. So nothing immediate on the roadmap, but it's a good reminder for me to follow back up with them and see what types of integrations we could have.
Yeah, I think it'd be really cool to have a Shade Refract with Shade with the lent asset, the X asset you talked about, and then have that refracted back. I mean, I think it's kind of that can kind of twirl your head around a little bit if you have to think about it.
So that's essentially like you deposit Atom, which is a non-yield bearing token, for X Atom, which is the principal plus the interest earned from lending, and you refract that out so you have the interest. It's like a yield bearing version of Atom lending, and then just the principal tied to the lending. So that would be interesting.
That'd be interesting. Okay, well, I think that was pretty much the only question I had on the Twitter handle. Is there anything else that I missed? Anything you want to share? Anything?
I just want to say, whoever watching this, be sure to follow and subscribe to Blue Collar Crypto. This has been super pleasant interview. Really well thought out questions, and thank you for your time and research and energy into this interview. I hope it educates folks out there, and I would just encourage anyone watching this, join the community, try the product. Not even ask you to buy the Shade token. Just come use the app. Come enjoy privacy and come enjoy one of the coolest DeFi suites in all of Cosmos.
Well, there you have it, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Once again, my name is Phillip, and I'm your host. Thank you so much for being on the show. We really do appreciate it. Remember, guys, this is not financial advice. This is a research tool. We encourage you to leave here and continue to do your research, read the docs, try out the product. Crypto is risky. You can lose what you put in. So please make sure you do your own research. Thank you.